What a wild week and day it has been for JJK fans. Like, it has just been non-stop, just discussion, controversy, drama, just everything. It has been crazy. And this episode really just continues on delivering more onto the pile because, boy oh boy, Gojo just, my boy, oh my goodness, what an episode for Gojo. Like, seriously, what a freaking episode. So, we can kind of summarize this episode of JJK in a few different ways. For one, we could say that this is Gojo's, glorious fight. He is him being able to fight all of the main enemy cast and all that, and showcase that no matter what they do to him, the only way to really defeat him is by sealing him off. It's basically saying that the enemy admits that there's just no way to kill Gojo. They are too weak, they can't bring him down, he is too strong, which says a lot, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But then we also have a return to form, and I guess a very positive reception to this episode for the art and animation. Now, FYI, just as a brief little reminder, last week there was a lot of drama, a lot of controversy around, the art and animation. Like, there was a brief scene in last week's episode with, Yuji versus the Grasshopper, where there was ghosting and dimming. And this episode doesn't really have ghosting and dimming. There's only one scene that has dimming, and it's the scene where, Gojo pops off and he's, taking care of all the disfigured humans, but the dimming isn't so atrocious that you can't understand what's going on. And you can understand clearly what's happening throughout this entire scene, and when the BD DVD comes out, it's obviously not going to be as dimmed, and it's going to look absolutely gorgeous. I'm not going to lie, I'm probably going to have to pick me up a BD DVD of JJK Season 2, because I really got to see what the series is supposed to look like when it, officially releases. But, yeah, it is a return to form for the art and animation. It is not a bad-looking episode, and in fact, I have not really seen anyone complain about this episode, which I think is legitimately amazing to see. I'm really happy that most of the people that are looking at this episode, and it's trending because they really love this episode, and it took them by storm. It was quite the shock with what happened to, Gojo, with Geto at the end as well, to just the entire sequence of fights and all that that's going on. I'm very happy about that. So, let's talk about that for a brief little second. So, the art and animation of this episode, I do think that isn't the best that JJK's ever delivered. Like, I think that, the standards of JJK is definitely higher than normal anime, because, let's be honest here, people have just gotten so used to how gorgeous the series can look, that people, when they returns back down to a normal level, people are very upset. And it makes sense. I mean, the expectations are very high for the series. But I feel like this episode isn't the best looking one, but I do think that it is definitely above average for JJK. And I'm glad to see the love and attention to detail that was given to Gojo. There was a lot of little effects here and there with his eyes, to the way the camera angle was, to the way his head moved. There was a lot of life and immersion that was poured into this episode. And speaking of immersion, and since I'm technically already on the scene, as you can see on screen, I love how a narrator was added in. I really love this, and I feel like this is like the hidden gem of this episode that a lot of people are kind of not talk too much about, but I absolutely love it when narrators come into a show and kind of break things down, because it adds a different layer of immersion to really get a good grasp of everything going on, and it also lets you know that things are going so quickly. Like, the speed of the characters are so fast that you need to have these things broken down for you, because it's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. I really loved that about, Hunter x Hunter 2011, and I'm glad to see some similar elements of that taking place within JJK Season 2. FYI, if you don't remember, Hunter x Hunter did have, a whole narrator section in, Chimera Antarc. There was multiple episodes that would be, just 1 minute. The time period, the time span of an episode was just 1 minute of length, basically, okay? And it was broken down throughout multiple episodes because there was just so much going on, and the reaction speed of certain characters was just so ridiculous that, it needed to be slowed down just to be able to understand what was going on. And I like that. I really did enjoy it. I know a lot of people there was a lot of people that did complain about the narrator at the time for Hunter x Hunter, but I always liked it. And I did see a lot of positive with it. And so, having a narrator for JJK Season 2, like I said, I think it adds an extra layer of immersion that really made me appreciate this episode, and I can't wait to see more of this as it continues to come out, because, it's so good. I really like it. But okay, I guess let's segue ourselves into Gojo's fight, and what necessarily happened to him. How he, basically got defeated. He took an L, and how it happened, etc. I think that this is a very important moment. So basically, what was admitted here in this episode is that the enemy team pretty much admits that no matter what they do, they cannot touch Gojo. They can't defeat this man. They can't kill him. That is what this episode pretty much clarifies. Like, we have some Aizen level stuff going on here, basically manipulation and all that, just to be able to get Gojo sealed off. And sealed off and being killed is so vastly different that it does need to be talked about. Like, yes, Gojo is obviously now outside of the series now. Like, he's sealed off, and he's not going to be able to fight, okay? He's not going to be able to defend anyone like Yuji or anyone. He's straight up, he's gone for the time being. But he's not dead. And I think that this is a very big detail, showcasing that, Geto, Mahito, and all of them, they pretty much admitted, yeah, we can't defeat you, and you're a monster, so we got to do our own way to be able to bring you down, which was sealing him off. And it just showcases the level of strength that Gojo's always had, and it's just that confirmation that, like, they don't even want to fight him. They don't want to fight him in a straight-up fight. Like, if they were to all go at him at once, use all their abilities, all their cursed energy, everything, to be able to fight Gojo, they would not be able to reach him. They would not be able to kill him. And I think that is what this episode perfectly demonstrates, which I think the downfall of Gojo in this episode is really fitting when you think about how it actually happened as well. So Gojo, how did he get sealed? Like, let's talk about that. So he got sealed, obviously, in the prison realm. We see this little box, this cube, that seals him off. And it's stated that, he needs to be near that box for 1 minute long, okay? So for 1 minute, he has to be near it, and then, he's sealed. But the thing is, keeping Gojo near that box, that's like, how are you gonna do that? Like, clearly he's fast. I mean, we literally saw in this episode, he was able to move around the entirety of the subway pretty much in like 0.2 of a second. Like, he's ridiculously fast, okay? So, keeping him in one spot, especially if he sees something like that, he's probably gonna back off and run. But what got him was hearing his old friend's voice say, "Yo, Satoru!" And, his face here alone just basically explains that. The shock of hearing a friend, an old friend that, he thought was long gone and all that here, and hearing his voice, it just shocked him to the very core. And no matter how superhuman you are, how honored one you are, godly, etc., you still, you're human at the end of the day. You have emotions, and Gojo does have emotions. We know this. And so this moment, he's in shock, and as he turns around and he looks at, Geto and all that, and, he's just trying to figure out what's going on, every memory of the past floods into his mind, like flashbacks and all that, thinking of his best friend and the good and the bad times. And in that moment, after he thinks all this, he gets captured by the prison realm and sealed off. And I like how this is done, because one of the big core things that this episode kind of tries to, shove into your head is that there is a lot of time disparity. Like, Gojo's, I guess, view on time is very distorted, because this man, as I already stated, was moving around the entire subway in 0.2 of a second, which was basically, 299 seconds long, but to him, or to everybody else, it was, 0.2 of a second. It's incredibly fast, okay? And so he has a distorted view on time. And after using his domain expansion and, fighting like he did, his mind is not probably perfectly in sync. He's moving very quick. He's got an ADHD brain, so to speak. He's thinking about everything right now. His mind is racing. And so when he sees his friend, or who he assumes was his old friend, his mind starts thinking, and it just races through everything so quickly, just back to back. And in that moment, he gets sealed because Geto admits that you needed 1 minute, but he didn't say it needed to be a physical 1 minute. If your mind thinks over a minute long happened, then that is enough, and you're sealed in the prison realm. And that's exactly what happened to Gojo. His very ability of, infinite void and being able to use time, basically like manipulate time and space because of, just everything about his abilities, it resulted in him having a distorted view on time and getting sealed off. And I like the downfall of this. It's basically Gojo's own ability was used against him. It was the only way to bring him down was by manipulating his very perception of time and sealing him off. It's a very smart and ingenious way to use the prison realm against Gojo, and I think that just everything that was written by this, it makes a lot of sense, like the way to get rid of him in this moment, because of just how his abilities work. It's really smart. I really, really like this. I know a lot of people are going to be upset that Gojo is obviously sealed, but I do think by the way it's handled is very realistic, and it showcases that Gojo isn't necessarily just, a superhuman sorcerer. He is human at the end of the day, and he does have, flaws within him, and it clearly shows here. So, great. Really great segment. Now, after all this, we had another bombshell that dropped, basically revealing that Gojo, his friend is long dead, and the person that's inhabiting his body isn't actually, Geto anymore. It's someone that pretty much shoved their brain into his body and is now controlling him and using his body like a puppet. It's pretty messed up. It's a very dark segment, and you gotta imagine Gojo is really hurt by this, because it's like, oh, so you're telling me my best friend's body's just walking around being used by someone else? Oh, that's gonna sting. That's gotta hurt and all that. And it just, everything about this, like, what led to this segment, like, of the, the series, is thanks to Gojo's actions, because he didn't completely obliterate the body, get rid of it, etc. It was perfectly intact. Everything about this, the body was able to be used. So many different layers here, and I like that. The downfall here is thanks to Gojo himself and nothing else. He lost because of his own mistakes. It was nobody else. He's the one that opened up with human weakness, so to speak. So yeah, it's really interesting to see. But besides that, let's get into a few other segments. Now, we do have great moments with, like, just setting up, like, stuff with, Mahito and Yuji, how he finds out that, Mahito's here. And this is a rematch that I think everybody's been looking forward to for a very long time, because it's like, Mahito and Yuji have history, thanks to everything that happened at the beginning of the story with, Junpei. And seeing, this potential rematch happening very soon is pretty exciting. Like, how's it going to go down? How's Yuji going to react? There's a lot going on here. And now that, Gojo's technically sealed off, nobody really can resist the cursed spirits. No one that's really overwhelmingly powerful. So, what will happen? Who will die? Etc. But yeah, what a great episode. This is legitimately a good episode of JJK. Wild week for the series, wild week for the fans. I'm happy to see it, honestly, to a degree. But I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. May you have a fantastic day or night wherever you live. Be safe, stay healthy. Chibi out.